Hey, right to the story of the hour. President Trump meets with NATO. Sebastian Gorka joins us now. He's President Trump's deputy assistant on foreign policy. Sebastian, of course, we know terror will be the focus, especially after what happened in Manchester. Do you think it changes the conversation?
Oh, I undoubtedly think it will focus the minds of the NATO allies, the leaders, and the specialists involved in the meeting. Absolutely. NATO was the most successful military alliance in modern history for one very specific reason. It had a shared threat perception from all its members. Whether you were Belgium, whether you were Canada, whether you were Luxembourg, whether you were America, you agreed. The Soviet Union and communism was the threat to Western civilization. Now these nations will be coming together to discuss the threat posed by global jihadism and what the president has rightly called radical Islamic terrorism.
Sebastian, what I've read is that perhaps Germany and France will make some sort of cursory nod toward the fact that NATO should amend its mission statement, if you will, to include terrorism, but they won't be as serious about this. Listen, they just had the election in France. Maybe they'll take that as a signal that their citizens aren't ready to make such a dramatic shift.
I'm not here to talk for the leadership of France or of Germany. I know the president will be meeting with Macron. They will be discussing issues of national security together. There will be a private dinner with key NATO leaders also, as well as EU leaders separately. So it has to focus. The events of Manchester, the attacks in France, the attacks in Germany, these all have to be discussed, and new policies, new approaches I know will be on the table, because Article 5 is not about the Soviets rolling through the Fulda Gap. Article 5, the common defense, has to be about things like ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
Sebastian, please stay right there, because I also have Doug Schoen here, Fox News contributor, also former Clinton pollster. We're hearing reports that Theresa May confront the president on these intelligence leaks. Doug.
Well, first, on something like that, I can completely understand. If our intelligence is not sacrosanct, that which we collect, that's what we receive from our allies, we have a terrible, terrible problem. Look, there's been an issue. It's not worth going through and litigating it again. But suffice it to say, I think every right-thinking America wants intelligence to stay secure, private, and only for those who it is intended.
All right, one more for you, Sebastian. The Manchester bomber slipped through the cracks. There were red flags there. We've seen the same thing happen here in America, where at some point authorities, this person became a person of interest, and just for whatever reason, whether it's political will, whether it's budget constraints, police restraints, technology restraints, we just did not foil their attacks.
Well, this is a very disturbing trend, not just in the UK but elsewhere. The question of individuals that have somehow gotten onto the radar screen, whether through their associations, what they've said on social media, or their travel, and then the question of them not being actively pursued later or monitored. The bottom line is it takes 20 people minimum to surveil somebody physically if they're a suspect or person of interest. That's a lot of manpower. You start multiplying the number of people who've traveled to Libya, Syria, Iraq, and come back, and we're talking about manpower issues as well as policy issues.
Sebastian, so far the president's trip has been unmitigated success, despite a lack of coverage here in the United States. But just 2 hours ago, former President Obama had an event with Angela Merkel. And, you know, in his commentary, he used these sort of hot-button words: xenophobia, nationalism, intolerance, anti-democratic trends, also saying, quote, "we can't hide behind walls." I know the President Obama, it feels like he's trolling President Trump on his first foreign trip, his first most important trip to Europe. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Very simply, just one. He's trying to cover himself for 8 years of catastrophic counterterrorism policies and a feckless foreign policy that created vacuums across the globe into which bad guys stepped, whether it's ISIS, whether it's our peer competitors. He has to say what he's saying now, because he made the world a more dangerous place. The world is on fire. There are 65 million refugees in the world today. That's a world's record. There were less refugees in 1945 at the end of World War II. So, you know, this is what the Trump administration inherited, but we're jettisoning those strategies. You heard the president make this statement statement in Riyadh. He made this statement again during his trip afterwards. The policies of the last 8 years were an utter shambolic failure. We are taking the threat seriously, and the president will obliterate groups like ISIS.
Sebastian Gorka, thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you on. We appreciate it.